I actually believe that almost without exception, every single one of us does the same thing for a living. We're in the business of serving other people, and we may be selling them different stuff, but we're all in the business of serving them. And we all have this beautiful opportunity to make the choice about whether we want to do that through the lens of service or through hospitality. Do we want to raise the level through which we do it? And
Mhm.
I think that's a beautiful thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Will Guidara. And what he just said is a sample of what he's going to share with you on this upcoming podcast. Will is a renowned restaurateur and author of the best-selling book, Unreasonable Hospitality. He's also the former co-owner of Nomad and 11 Madison Park, which was rated the best restaurant in the world under his leadership.
He's also gone on to host the Welcome Conference and has a brand new hospitality group called Thank You. And what a wonderful guest. He was warm and kind and welcoming and so generous with his time and his spirit.
In fact, he wrote us this beautiful email at the end thanking us, and he wanted to give all three of us a big hug. The third person is our producer, Ashley, and he made us feel exactly like he talks about in his book and his work. And so we're going to let you guys hear everything he has to offer. I'm excited to share this with my team and listen to it for the third and fourth time to hear what we can take away from it. It is rich.
Lots of beautiful nuggets. Let's share this with everybody right now. Good morning.
Good morning, Will. It is such an honor and such a privilege and such a delight that we get to chat with you about your book and much more. Let me give you a brief introduction, then we'll get into some of your amazing work and accomplishments. Will, you are considered a pioneering and influential figure in the fine dining and hospitality industry, known for your innovative approach in creating a memorable guest experience. Your best-selling book, Unreasonable Hospitality, has taken the world by storm. You're a generous leader in the hospitality industry and much more. You grew up on the business side of the restaurant world under your dad, who's also a restaurateur and leads a restaurant group. And your dad is your role model. And we are just honored as hell that you agreed to do this. Connie?
Well, yeah, good morning. I mean, what we're, I think, most excited about, Will, is to help proliferate your story, your message, because it piggybacks on so much of what we share on a daily basis, and yet it takes it to another level. Simon Sinek in the foreword was really clear that this is for everybody. This isn't just the restaurant business. And that's part of why we're so excited about this, because not everybody knows that. And this applies to doctors, real estate agents, you name it. And so we want to get into that with you today. And I think we're going to make a big difference for our listeners.
Well, I'm so excited to be here. And I have to say that the energy that the two of you bring through a screen, it's like a warm bath on a cold day.
Oh,
I feel my 3-year-old daughter recently has learned the words nice and cozy, which is the most hilarious and endearing thing to hear a 3-year-old girl say. She'll wake up in the morning and she'll be
boy.
like, Dad, let's get a blanket and get nice and
Nice
cozy.
and
And I
cozy.
Let me
feel
do
nice
that.
and cozy with the two of you. So I'm
Yeah.
excited for this
Well,
conversation.
that's the best compliment in the world for us this
Really?
morning. That's
And,
great.
it cuts right to the chase of our mission, which is your mission, which is to spread this to the world way beyond the hospitality industry and that feeling of nice and cozy. How cool is that?
Hmm.
That you feel it, because that's our mission. It doesn't matter what we say, doesn't matter what we do. As Maya Angelou said, it's how do we make people
Mhm.
feel? And that's our life's work, getting that to more people with the simple tips and ideas and stories that will nudge everybody to say, you know what? I can do a better job of making people feel nice and cozy.
That's going to be the
Yeah,
term of the day. You know that.
totally. And don't think that this won't be the point. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
We say, Connie and I were talking this morning in preparation for this, and, we love your work, but we love our work. And Connie said, well, this is, his stuff is be the sun, not the salt on steroids. And it really is. It gives such practical application to how we make people uplifted and feel great. And we'll get into the stories of how you have done that and how you are doing that. and our purpose.
What what's so funny is one of the things I try to do. On your phone, you have the Notes app, right, where you can
Mhm.
just constantly kind of have an ongoing stream of consciousness. And one of them on my phone, one of the pinned ones, is called Definitions of Hospitality,
Mm,
which I think is important. I think that if anything matters to you, you should challenge yourself to say it in different ways or re-articulate it in as many different
Mhm.
ways as possible, because the better you are at articulating something, the better you become at compelling those around you to embrace it. And
Mhm.
so after this, I will add hospitality is making people feel nice and cozy.
Nice and
yeah.
cozy. I love that.
And it really is ever exciting and ever new.
Mhm.
And the ways to apply this are infinite.
Yeah,
Well,
I think talking about this in different ways, I'm curious about some of those definitions of hospitality. Do you have any of that were in your notes that you think about?
Yeah, I mean, let's see, hospitality is being creative and intentional in pursuit of relationships. Hospitality is about making people feel seen. Hospitality is setting expectations. Hospitality is extending an invitation. Hospitality is a dialogue, not a monologue. Hospitality is, I could literally just go
Yeah.
on and
No,
on and
love
on and
that.
I mean,
on.
I'm going, more, please, more, please.
Well, and
Coin.
as a restaurant owner, Harry, you specific like I connect on it on so many levels, Will, but I mean, I think within your restaurant, you've seen that come to life too.
I mean, I want to marinate in each one of those phrases. I gave your book to several people. I own a restaurant in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I said, listen, I'm doing this podcast with the author. You're kidding me. No. So,
Mhm.
did it impact you in any way? And two different people that it, here's the part I love. It's not that we don't know that it's true. We know how true this is, but that it can make people behave different, better. One guy, one of my servers, he's a professional server. He said, I had this couple and they wanted a Manhattan with 2 cherries, and I gave them 3 cherries because of the.
Mhm.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, seriously. And then he said they gave me a huge tip. Ta-da! Okay.
Yeah.
And my bar manager, second degree sommelier, somebody wanted, I guess, a drink with ice cream. We didn't have ice cream. He went down to the gas station and got ice cream for
Yeah.
that couple.
Not a hot dog, but ice cream.
Not a
Yeah.
hot dog.
Right.
No, but that's beautiful.
Mhm.
This is,
Totally.
can I say just a few different
Yes.
things?
Please.
Say anything.
First of all, to anyone listening to this right now, if you're questioning whether there's relevance in this conversation to what you do, I actually believe that almost without exception, every single one of us does the same thing for a living. We're in the business of serving other people, and we may be selling them different stuff, but we're all in the business of serving them. And we all have this beautiful opportunity to make the choice about whether we want to do that through the lens of service or through hospitality. Do we want to raise the level through which we do it? And
Mhm.
I think that's a beautiful thing. I think what I wanted to do with the book, and those two stories are beautiful affirmations for me that it's working, is one, there's so many people out there that actually understand this intuitively, but they perhaps needed someone to put a little intention to their intuition, or
Mhm.
to help them articulate what they understand in their heart, and in doing so make it easier for them to bring these things to life. And other people who just need permission, because I think we live in a world where it's not cool to try too hard
Mhm.
sometimes,
Mhm.
or it's not cool to go above and beyond. And I think we need to reframe what is cool and give people permission to follow their
Mhm.
heart and actually be the try hard. Remember, like in high school, you were like you were a nerd if you tried too
Yeah.
hard, right? And I
Yeah.
think there's a part of us that never stopped being high schoolers. And so
Mhm.
my hope was like that this book could give a lot of people permission to say, hey, it's actually kind of cool to do this stuff,
Mhm.
and don't be embarrassed
Yeah.
in wearing your heart on your sleeve, and just kind of go
Mhm.
for it.
You said it in your book, which is it making it cool to care.
Mm.
And caring, we say, is a learnable skill. We can make it cool to care. We can teach people how to care more. And you said,
Mhm.
allow their heart to be expressed. One of the things that Mindy Holman, who brought us together, she's the chairman of the board of the company that we work with, she brought your book to a shareholders meeting a year ago. And she said, I challenge you all to find ways to be unreasonable in your expressions of love. Truly caring for each other, your families, customers, your communities. And it grew and grew. And that notion to be unreasonable in the expression of your love is what we all want to do. It's been around for thousands of years. All the sages had spoken about this.
It's the other important point that Will makes is that it's not just about that experience that you've given, it's how it makes you feel to have done it. And it's about all the people around you and the teamwork that it inspires.
Yeah.
You saw that in your own restaurant too, didn't you? As you started making customers feel seen and heard, it sounded like the team started to make each other feel a little more seen and heard as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's like anything. You end up in a world where everyone on the team is more engaged with their work. You end up in a world where everyone on the team is more fulfilled by their work. You end up in a world where it's just more fun.
Yeah.
And the byproduct of that, actually, as strange as it might seem, is that you're also making your customers really happy. But I think that the satisfaction of the customer is a byproduct of everything else. What I love about your appreciation board, which, because by the way, my team always goes through all the messages, and then every once in a while, oh my gosh, Will, this one's so cool. You have to do this one. You got to meet these people. Is I believe you can systemize all of this stuff. And in fact, you need to systemize it. And you systemized the expression of gratitude, right? Like we talk about creating these practices all the time in life. People create practices of meditation. Every single morning, I'm going to wake up and before I have my coffee, I'm going to do 20-minute meditation. Or every single day, I'm going to get on the Peloton for 30 minutes. Or every single day, I am going to write in my journal. But you can create just as much of a practice around hospitality and gratitude and appreciation and all of that stuff simply by putting systems in place. And honestly, some of the most effective ways to get people addicted to this stuff is when you start with a system. And so I'll give you an example. I spoke at Sundance Film Festival last year, and anyone who flew anywhere in the year 2023 can attest to the fact that flights were severely delayed. That one was especially delayed. I think the flight was delayed like 7 hours. I got to the hotel at 4 a.m. I've been staying at a lot of hotels recently, and one of the pet peeves that I've developed is how lengthy the check-in process can be, where they want your email and your cell phone number and your wife's maiden name and all this nonsense. And like it feels like it's just endless.
Yeah.
And so I wake up in the back of this car at 4 a.m. in front of this hotel and walk in bleary-eyed, readying myself for that process because I'm always very careful, in spite of the fact that it has become a pet peeve, to not take that out on the person following a set of rules because it's not their fault. And I need to be patient in those moments, even if I'm feeling impatient. But I walk in and there's a guy just standing, the only guy left in the hotel. He was the overnight manager, Oscar, and he's standing inside the door and he just has a room key outstretched. And he said, Mr. Guidara, you must be exhausted. Here's your room key. Go get some sleep. We can check in the morning. Caveat, he did not know who I was. He wasn't doing that because he knew who Will Guidara was. I was just the last person to check into the hotel, so it was clear. Went upstairs, fell asleep right away, feeling like warm and cozy, right? Nice and cozy. Because sometimes it's those simplest gestures that can be the most profound when they hit you in the moment where you need them the most. Fell right to sleep. The next morning, I have never been more excited to check into a hotel. I ran downstairs, excitedly, gleefully checked in, and then ran around the hotel to find the general manager and finally found him. And I was like, dude, Oscar? I mean, he is definitely the best employee you've ever had. Like, you've got to give this guy a raise. You would not believe what he did. It was unbelievable. And he goes, here, Oscar's great. I'm probably not going to give him a raise. But also that thing that he did had nothing to do with Oscar. And I was like, what? Apparently, the delays into Utah were actually really bad, worse than in most parts of the country throughout the entire year. And so some number of months earlier, they sat down, they had a meeting with the team, and they said, how do we systemize some hospitality into our reaction here? And that's what they came up with. If you checked in after, I think it was 2 a.m, they just gave you the room key, let you go to sleep, and they'd check in the morning, breaking a ton of rules, by the way. That's not really allowed in hotels, but they chose to prioritize people over policies. It's a beautiful thing. He went on to say, this is actually where I'm going to make the point of the story, that Oscar wasn't actually that hospitable at all
Wow.
when they started
Wow.
this program.
Wow.
But once they created a framework within which he was forced to operate, and he started to get addicted to reactions like the one I had, he started to become more and more hospitable. And through drawing within the lines of the system they created, he was increasingly compelled to color outside of the lines and find unique opportunities to deliver gestures of his own.
That's
So,
beautiful. I am inspired by that story to look for more ways myself to do more of that. Because I always go to the how do we help people, myself mostly, but others as well. We're in the business of being and doing, being and teaching. I want to be hospitable myself. I want to be loving and kind. I want you to feel warm and cozy. Okay. How do I create? How can I create more systems so that I do that more effortlessly and easily? And how can I get more people to do that? So that's a whole new world for
Well,
me.
it was not just listening, like you talk about active listening and how important that is. This is anticipating through probably
mm.
active listening to people who weren't so happy to have to stand in line at 2 in the morning and check in. So
It's just
it's ant
simple pattern recognition. It's just looking
absolutely.
for recurring moments and figuring out how you can be more inspired in your
Mhm,
response.
mhm. Yep.
I'm thinking about a salesperson in the car industry. Okay. Now
Mm.
it's beautiful. There's 100 million little contact moments of repetitive opportunities to do that. How do we create the Oscar experience, which will be forever called the Oscar system?
And the
Facts.
smallest things go a long way. It's so funny. Here's an opposite example in the car business. Have lived in New York City for basically my entire life since I graduated college. And so we didn't need cars, right? We didn't have cars. And then my wife opened a bakery in Los Angeles. I opened a hotel in Los Angeles, and we figured we should get a little house. And so we've got like a little bungalow in LA. Now we need a car. And my wife is just so amazing and impossible to buy gifts for, by the way, because she just wants for nothing. She does not like she doesn't like clothing or jewelry or bags or anything.
Mhm.
And so now we're finally getting kind of our first car, but we've done well in life. And so I'm like, all right, what do you want to get? And I want a two-door Jeep Wrangler. That's the car I've always wanted. I'm like, all right, well, this is cheap date here. All right, let's do it. So we we have a weekend off, and I'm like, we're getting the car today. We're gonna find somewhere that can sell us this car. That's gonna be our mission. And so finally we find someone to get the car. And we find this dealer, and they're so lovely. And honestly, the hospitality there was pretty extraordinary. Gave us a drink, whatever, just the warmth, the kindness, the whole thing. Finally get in the
Mhm.
car. So excited to drive off the lot. And the last thing they said was, hey, there's a gas station 2 blocks down. You have just enough gas in the car to get you there.
Oh,
And,
oh.
and that was the end of the experience. Now, so
Oh, beautiful. Oh, is that good? Oh, is that
How not to
well?
be.
But
it's a how not to. And by the way, you can learn
Yeah,
just as much from the people you don't want to emulate as you can from the people that you do.
absolutely. That's
oh, I
very
like
true.
that. Oh, I
But there's
like
there
that.
there's a scientific principle someone came up with to define how human beings remember experiences. It's called the peak end rule. And they
Mhm,
remember it based on the peak. So what I mean by that is whatever the furthest deviation from zero, for better or
mhm.
worse, and then the very end. And this dealership, it was like watching an amazing gymnast at the Olympics who does everything right and then just totally
Balls at the end.
flubs the landing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the only thing I'll actually ever really remember about buying a car
Mhm.
there for
Oh,
$50.
That would be memorable.
well, the story is such a beauty for so many reasons. Morals and
Mhm.
stories. The morals that I took are, oh wow, I was waiting that you were cruising along, and then the stick the landing. I was
Yeah.
wondering where's it going to go. Oh, and we all know what that feels like with the now. Make sure I added 20% onto your bill and you didn't know that.
Yes.
The awful end, great principle, great illustration. And for me, we can learn as much from things that go poorly as we can from things that go well, and take the lesson from that for ourselves. When somebody drops the ball there, but for the grace of God, go I. I've done that. And I might do it again. And I want to learn not just from their screw up, but from my own. And I don't want
And yeah, and like the way you're inspired by that, this is now, because inspiration can be passive or it can be active, right? I think way too many people receive inspiration passively, which is, if you just listen to that story, wherever you are, you're like, wow, that's crazy. Yeah, you can learn more. That's inspiring. But okay, great. Now what happens? Nothing. Or you can say, let's make this an active pursuit. So if I own a car dealership now, what I'm thinking is I'm going to have a team meeting and I'm going to share that story and I'm going to challenge the team to spend an hour brainstorming. How do we do the opposite of that? The opposite of that is, by the way, not giving them a full tank of gas. That's not the opposite of that, because that's whelming. They did something underwhelming. Full tank of gas is whelming. How do you actually take that exact moment and that experience and make it overwhelming? And by the way, that's where it gets fun.
I love that.
Because if you're selling cars, you don't get to do the fun part of designing the fender or designing the dashboard. Like that, I would love to design a car. How fun would that be? We don't get to do that. There's other people that have spent their entire careers getting to the point where they're allowed to do that. But we can design this part, which is, what does the experience of driving off that lot feel like? And
yeah, they were giving your wife her dream car. I mean, that was an opportunity to celebrate, take a picture for her, draw a picture.
Like the entire dealership out there clapping, confetti cannons, whatever it is.
Some version, whatever they heard is important to her.
So, I mean, we're always looking for ways to up the experience of delivering this, what I will call love, true, caring, and compassionate love for others. We went to a workshop, a leadership team years ago. It was actually 9 years ago. We went to a Four Seasons, and they gave a little talk. And he said 3 things, and I can remember this today. Get it right, get me right, wow me if you can. Just get it right. Just deliver the thing that I ordered. Get me right. Just know me. If I ordered black coffee, just know that I don't like cream. And then wow me, that last one, wow me if you can. Isn't that a nice little nugget? Get it right. Just if I ordered
bare minimum.
Right. If I ordered eggs, don't give me French toast. Get me right. Know a little bit about me. And then the third, wow me if you can. Gives license to do it in a creative and beautiful way. Doesn't matter how. So
yeah.
Yeah, the exclamation
I love that. I just
point.
wrote that down. Hey, by the way, I want to finish this. The opposite of sending people away with an empty tank of gas would be, hey, you just got a car. You've been wanting this car for a really long time. Go on a joyride on us. Here's a $50 Amex gift card to refill the tank once you drain it on your joyride. Wouldn't that be fun?
Totally.
And then I'd be just cruising around, because they're giving you actually 2 things. They're giving you a tank of gas, but that's not what they're giving you. They're giving you the permission to just go on a joyride, which, by the way, there is something with the etymology of that word
Feels
that every
good
single car dealership should lean into, a joyride. I mean,
Right.
Well, I think you put an exclamation point after the point that was made at the Four Seasons story, and that's how that last moment. So even if they wowed you yesterday, but you checked out today, how do you make that person leave feeling that wow? And I think that's what I just took away, Will, was like, every last moment with somebody is the opportunity to leave them with something special. And I think that's what I would be inspired to do.
And I want to do that with every exchange that I have with every human being.
That's what I mean with people. Yeah.
I want people to feel what it means to be inspired, to be the sun. I want people to go, I mean, you said such a sweet thing to us to begin with. It was so lovely. I feel like mic drop. Okay, we're done.
But if you're not nice at the end,
that's right.
We'll forget all
I hope at the end of the podcast, you still feel the same way. You still love us. You still feel warm and cozy.
I don't know if we did a good enough job setting up the origin story too. I mean, I would love for people to hear your idea around the whole paradox around unreasonable hospitality. where it came to you. I love the hot dog story. I'd love for you to set that up because people will buy your book after listening to this, but I'd love to give them a reason why.
No, for sure. So at I'm a restaurateur. I'm not sure we dove so quickly into the conversation. I run restaurants. I have my entire life, and I was at a restaurant in New York called 11 Madison Park, and it was kind of a mediocre restaurant, but we had these ambitions of making it one of the great restaurants in the world, and got all the locally available accolades. 4 stars from the New York Times, 3 stars from Michelin, before we finally landed ourselves a spot on the list of the 50 best restaurants in the world. And we went there full of excitement and enthusiasm, only to come in last place on that list the first year we were there. Um, I quote my dad often. One of my favorites of his quotes is, "Adversity is a terrible thing to waste. You can't always control what life throws at you, but you can control how you allow it to challenge you, what you learn from it, how you kind of use it to fuel your competitiveness." And honestly, I look back now with hindsight and really feel that coming in last place that first year was the best thing that could have ever happened, because it lit a fire in us. And here's the deal. The idea of being the best restaurant in the world is kind of patently absurd, right? There's too many restaurants. It's too subjective. When you earn the top spot on the list, what it actually means is that you were the restaurant having the greatest impact on the world of restaurants at that point in time. And so literally that same night that we came in last place, I wrote on a cocktail napkin, "We will be number one in the world." Because I really do believe you can talk things into existence. If you set audacious goals and are patient in your pursuit, you can accomplish just about anything if you're willing to commit yourself enough to the cause. But a goal without a strategy is nothing more than a pipe dream. I needed to figure what our impact was going to be. And every other restaurant that had topped that list before us was run by a chef who was unreasonable in pursuit of their product and relentless in pursuit of change. And that night, I decided our impact would come through being unreasonable in pursuit of people and relentless in pursuit of the one thing that will never change, which is our human desire to feel seen, to feel cared for, to feel a sense of belonging, to feel welcome. And so that's where unreasonable hospitality came from. Those 2 words I wrote on that same cocktail napkin. And then it was a matter of figuring out what did that mean.
What that meant.
Which, by the way, I think a lot of people hold themselves back in life because they don't start pursuing an idea until they fully understand it. I actually think you just need to start pursuing ideas and trust in the fact that they'll reveal themselves to you fully along the way. And so with the team for years, we just started trying to figure out what this meant. And the light bulb moment, which has become kind of the story of the book that a lot of people have taken away with it from it, happened one night or one day. It was a lunch service and the team was just getting crushed, right? It was busier than normal. And so I was in the dining room bussing tables, which is what I do to support my team when they're busy, with intention. Because I think that one of the greatest things a leader can do is do the most menial task to support the people on their team. It not only gives you the best sense of what's actually happening in your business to do the thing at the very front of the front line, but it also sends a meta signal to your team that no matter where you are within the hierarchy, you're never going to ask them to do something that they are not. You're never going to ask them to do something you're not willing to do yourself. And while I was at this table clearing their appetizers, I overheard them talking. And they were a table of 4 foodies from Europe on vacation to New York just to eat at restaurants. And they had a trip of a lifetime, and they were talking about it. They'd been to the Bernardin and Danielle and Persay and Jean-Georges. And anyone listening who doesn't know what those restaurants are, trust in the fanciness of the names that they are some of the best restaurants. And they had the trip of a lifetime. But then one woman jumped in and said, "Yeah, but you know what we never had was a New York City hot dog." And it was just one of those light bulb moments. And I dropped off the plates, ran outside, got a hot dog, ran back inside. Then came the hard part, which was convincing my fancy chef to serve it in our fancy restaurant. But I convinced him, and he cut the hot dog up into 4 perfect pieces and added a little swish of ketchup and mustard and perfect little quenelle of sauerkraut and relish to each plate. We made it look very fancy. And then before their final savory course, which was our signature honey lavender glazed Muscovy duck that had been dry aged for 2 weeks, I brought out what we in New York call a dirty water dog to the table, and they freaked out. I think athletes always go to the tapes and they've had a bad game to see what they did wrong to try to make sure they don't repeat those mistakes. None of us go to the tapes often enough when we've had a good game to see what we did well to make sure we keep on doing that thing. That's how you take these almost accidental moments and grab onto them and hold on to them. And so we unpacked the hot dog and put a system behind it. And that truly started the new path that we were on and opened all sorts of doors. And the rest you can read about in the book.
So, for such a beautiful story and illustrates the essence of what you're saying. And we were reviewing and preparing for this podcast and rewatched the episode from The Bear, one of our favorite TV shows, to show that it had legs. The cool part about this is the fact that the TV show The Bear took that concept and brought it to life. The part that excites me about this, you cannot repeat it enough. You can't remind each other enough. I had forgotten that scene. I was reminded. I was like, oh my God, yep, they referenced Unreasonable Hospitality.
Yeah, they brought the book out.
But the cool part about this work is that why we're doing this is to find new ways to say it again, to be creative in the expression of this work so that we can find more better ways to do that hot dog story, our own version of that hot dog story. It's whatever it is for each other. Well, your work has inspired us. And I want to just tell you, our connections are interesting in that Simon Sinek, I was at a retreat 10 years ago, and it was this listening retreat that we were inspired to do something massive in the world. And lo and behold, 10 years later, here we are. And Simon helped you in the foreword to the book articulate your beautiful mission.
You were with Simon at Massive? Okay, do you want to know something?
What? You were invited?
No, so I went to Massive. This is funny. So it's a longer story about me pursuing a friendship with Simon. Actually, I'll tell you real quick because it's fun. I was not at the restaurant one night. Simon Sinek came into the restaurant. One of the people on my team texted me. They're like, Simon Sinek's here. And I was like, oh my gosh. I wasn't in New York City. And so in my world, not my industry, my company, if I text you the words crush him, it means do everything. Make sure he leaves. Like there is no world where he's not going to leave thinking we're the best restaurant in the world. Crush him. And so I said crush him.
By the way, I'm stealing
that. And so the next day I asked my assistant to find Simon's emailed him, and I said, hey, I hope you enjoyed the meal. It's such a pleasure to have you, and I'm sorry I missed you. Now, I have a conference called the Welcome Conference that I host in New York City. And it's a big conference. We keep tickets very low in their prices. We can't afford to pay speakers what they would normally get. But in this moment, and by the way, that night I knew who Simon was, obviously, but I did a much deeper dive on Simon from whatever hotel room I was in. And I was like, I need Simon to speak at the Welcome Conference. And so Simon and I met for a coffee at the Nomad, and eventually with his sister, Sarah, and eventually I pitched it. And he did oh yeah, that sounds cool. Let me think about it. I'll get back to you, which was his way of saying, I'm going to say no, but I have no desire to say no to you now. But I was like, no, I'm gonna get him. And so I emailed everyone in my entire company. I said, if anyone ever sees Simon in one of our restaurants, you need to text me right away. And so I got a text. We had a restaurant in Aspen, EMP Winter House. It was a seasonal pop-up. And Simon was at a Six Top, not under his name. He was there with someone else. And I said, crush him. And then at the end of the meal, go up to Simon and say his dinner's with my compliments. So Simon, he wasn't there under his name. And so at the end, someone goes over and says, Mr. Sinek, Will's so sorry he couldn't be here tonight's with his compliments. And he just turns, he is sitting next to his sister, and he goes, well, I guess I'm speaking at the fucking Welcome Conference. And so Simon speaks. We become very close friends. He asked me to go to speak at Massive, and this must be
That's funny.
2018.
It's way after mine, yeah.
So you know how Massive works. It's 20 people there, and it's like kind of a salon of sorts, but it seems, I don't know if this is always the case, but he had 3 people do a little mini presentation. the year I was there, the theme was loyalty, and he asked me to speak, and I spoke. And at the end, he and his publisher, Adrian Zackheim, said, "That's a book. You need to write a book." And
Oh,
so Unreasonable Hospitality only exists because of the 20-minute talk I did at Massive. So we were both at the place that gave birth to this book.
yeah.
Seriously. I mean, I was there 5 years before or 4 years before, and it was a listening focus with Bill Urey, Harvard Negotiation Project. The focus was listening. And from that, it inspired me. I'm ready to make a difference in this world. I mean, give Simon some love for what he has done, is doing, did do, and will continue to do.
Yeah.
And
I'll see
Well, it's
him
not.
tonight. So I'll
seriously,
send him your love. Yeah.
seriously.
Well, it's not nearly as impressive, but when I saw Harry speak on this whole platform around Be the Sun, Not the Salt, I said, that's going to be on t-shirts all over the world. I want to help you.
Hmm.
So that hence the book, but it's not nearly as cool as Simon Sinek telling you should.
Hold on a second. I mean, talk about massive. No,
Oh,
it is
wow.
as cool because this, to your point, this earlier point, what is our true mission here? We want to make this a household expression people can imbibe and get and lean into forever. There's 8 billion people in the world. They can understand this simple concept of be the sun and not the salt. And until I die, that is our mission. You talk about big, hairy, audacious goals. It seems silly to put it out there. No, it doesn't. It feels like let be
Part
the
of the
way
zeitgeist. Yeah.
of the world. People can
you have to
understand.
put it out there.
Yeah, we didn't intend, but children like your daughter
Yeah.
have picked up on this vernacular. Teachers, parents have started to use the book because graphically, the cover says everything it needs to say. Look, kids get it right away. You want to make them feel like this, not like this, you know?
One little girl said, "You know what? I have to be aware of the soil that's dry so that I can water that person's soil." Their metaphor, being aware of another to be that extra kind. And so, I feel such a kinship for our collective mission to do this work, and our intertwined values are so beautifully aligned. So let me ask you, Will, you started a new hospitality group called Thank You, Not You're Welcome. Could you speak to that? Because it had to be an intention.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, the word "you're welcome," that phrase, I've always actually struggled with. When someone says thank you, you're welcome. I don't know. I like the word welcome. When someone's entering your space, you are welcoming them. But so that's almost an aside. The Welcome Conference, that's all about hosting and hospitality and welcoming people. Thank you. I saw a lot of people succeed in the restaurant space and get to the point where it's impossible to get a reservation at your restaurant, right? Start to almost act as if when a guest is lucky enough to get a reservation, they should be grateful to be there. And I owned the number one restaurant in the world. It was the hardest reservation in America to get. And what was always very important to me was that me and every single person on our team always felt grateful that someone chose to be with us and never fell into the trap of feeling like they should be grateful to be with us. And so Thank You is a hospitality company that is based in gratitude, that no matter what we do or ever come to achieve, we will always feel grateful for anyone who chooses to grace our doorstep.
I love
Mic drop. I love that and didn't know that. And man, is that beautiful.
Can I ask you, Will, as you've been teaching, and spreading this yourself, is there anything surprising that you've learned from other people?
I mean, that's what I try to do in the newsletter and with Unreasonable Hospitality out in the world,
On
is
the
all these
world,
little
yeah.
nuggets that I'm picking up along the way, just trying to share them in real time. I think it's funny, I was having a glass of wine. I'm in Austin, and there's a woman who used to work with me is now running a bunch of restaurants here. We had a glass of wine last night, and she was telling me about a new Italian-American restaurant they opened in Austin. And she was, as one does when you're talking to someone that used to work for you, want to brag a little bit and talk about the stuff that you're doing that is perhaps
Cool.
inspired by them. And so she was telling me about their moves, like the when we say moves, like these are little things that we've designed into the thing. You don't use them all the time, but they're there. They're in the toolkit. They're ready to be deployed at a given a moment's notice. And so they always have a bouquet of red roses behind the bar at this Italian American restaurant with a very specific purpose. That if there's ever a couple having a date at the bar, the bartender just grabs a red rose out of the bouquet to give it to him. It's a
Yeah.
move, right? And so the most inspiration I get is by seeing a move that someone else has and then figuring out how to deploy it in a different way within my world or use it to inspire other people in other industries to deploy it differently in theirs.
I
And
just
there's
stole
so
that.
many of them out there.
I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
stole
Right?
that. That's such a beautiful, just that concept of look for moves. Have your eyes peeled. Mindy talks about have your eyes peeled for opportunities to uplift and be helpful. Have your eyes peeled for moves.
I mean, I think seeing that deployed at your restaurant, Harry, would be different. But there's a version of that move. That's what I love about it. It's feasting off the idea and making it yours.
And I mean, Crush It, I just stole. From now on, we'll do the same mission, which is, oh man, I can just use that to help make somebody's evening. Oh my God. Thank you.
Yeah, and you only say crush it when you're really like, not everyone gets a crush.
Get them in. Get this 4-top. This is a 2-top. Get them in. That's not. Oh no, it's
Get them a reservation, give them an extra dessert, or crush it.
Crush it. There's several levels.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned, Will, the unreasonable hospitality out in the world. And for our listeners, if you're not following Will on socials, you should. That's where you get those moments of inspiration. And what I love is that you're sharing other people's inspiration from you. It's how are people finding it in the world or using it in the world? And I love those. So Instagram, LinkedIn, I don't know where else you post, but that's where I follow.
Yeah, that and then the newsletter, which I do called Pre-Meal, which comes out every 2 weeks, which people can sign up for at unreasonablehospitality.com, which is less stories of unreasonable hospitality, but it's more just like to the point of keeping your eyes peeled. I saw this, I was inspired, and this is the lesson that I want to pay forward through it.
Good. All right, great. That is good. I think,
so.
Harry, go ahead.
Let me ask you, Will, how do you deal with your perfectionism and still be the beautiful, kind, wonderful human that you are?
I think one of the best pieces of marriage advice I ever got was you're a good husband if you can wake up every single day and make the choice to pursue your wife. That it's a daily pursuit. You don't just figure it out and then you're good. And that is most certainly true with me about this. I will spend the rest of my life walking the line between these two sides of who I am. One is like this person who loves to support and empower and give agency and autonomy to the people around me. And then the other is this person who has some pretty intense OCD like tendencies and likes everything to be exactly a certain way. And by the way, both of those things are very important parts of why I've been successful. You don't achieve the levels of excellence I have without being that excellence focused, without striving for that level of perfection. And you don't create the kind of cultures that I've created without understanding the power of collaboration and empowerment. Yet those two things are not friends. They don't actually go naturally together. But that's not a bad thing. I think it's actually a good thing because the success I've found with the people I've worked with has not been in spite of that tension. It's been because of that. I think if you are not pursuing two conflicting goals and embracing the tension between them, you are not fully unlocking the potential. And so, yeah, it's walking that fine line and recognizing that there's going to be days where I walk it just right, and there's going to be other days where I fall off in either direction. And the falling off isn't what defines me; it's how I get back onto it and what I do in order to get back onto it.
I love that point, which is we will always fall, mess up, cross over the line. It's doing the next right thing or apologizing well or clean up the mess we just made. The beauty of that is that the screw ups are our greatest teacher. They remind us more than we need. We don't need anything other than our screw ups. And then we're like, oh, right. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
We talk about be the sun, not the salt. And the salt is very deliberate in that we say, and I know because it's empirical, that negativity, disrespect, unkindness, uncivility, or you would say sarcasm, is really bad. It's that example of you don't have any gas in your tank. It really stinks up the joint and makes people feel horrible. So never, that's the aspiration, never salt people's roots. Could you speak just a smidgen about that? Because in the restaurant business, but in life in general, people go, well, sometimes you got to, rip them a new one. And no, you talk about how to give, feedback and criticism as a gift, but never make people feel like crap. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like with many important things, there's nuance because sometimes you need to rip people a new one. Okay. Often you need to give people thoughtful criticism. I'd say all the time, concurrent with consistently giving them showering praise. I don't think a culture can do anything of consequence if it has not built a culture where feedback is normalized, where people are not only receptive, but are also seeking out feedback, both positive and constructive. And I think that criticism is so important because of praise is affirmation, criticism is investment. We don't grow in the absence of criticism. People telling us when we're falling short or when we're just not living up to our full potential. But it's like anything, it's not only what you're doing, but why you're doing it. If you are giving people constructive criticism in pursuit of helping them grow, that is one thing. If you're tearing them a new one, it's just to make them feel like shit. And then what are we really doing here?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what you said before, you quickly alluded to it, that I always talk about this idea that criticism is only thoughtful when you do it in the right way. And I have rules of criticism: criticize behavior, not the person; criticize without emotion; criticize in private, not in public. And the point of all that is that, listen, hospitality is being intentional in pursuit of relationships. We come up with all these moves when we are intentional in our pursuit of how you kind of craft the most incredible experience. And we need to be just as intentional in how we craft an experience of growth for the people on our team.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Be just as intentional in how we craft a moment of growth for members of our team. Now, that's true for parenting too. It's true for how do you talk about something.
So, yeah,
any
that's how I feel.
relationship.
Yeah, it's about like any relationship. Simon and I are going to be at this little conference together, and with my wife, we're doing a three-way conversation about friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to boil down to that exact same thing: is how are you more intentional in pursuit of friendships? Because that is actually the one that has fallen by the wayside a little bit. Like, there are all of these thought leaders around how to be the best parent. There's, I don't know, I'd imagine that's a multi-billion-dollar industry on how to be the best spouse.
Yeah.
There are increasingly more around how to be the best leader and the best, like all these different things. But yet, I don't believe you can live a fulfilling life without good friends. And no one is talking about how to be more active in pursuit of friendship. I don't know how I fell into that line of thinking, but I'm
No, but
obviously
it's-
thinking about it a
No,
lot right now.
because it's pure and good, and you follow where the juice is, and the juice is,
Oh, intention. Just
yeah,
intention. That's
Yeah.
where we started.
yeah.
Well, and remember Duncan Campbell, Harry, when we talked to him, old, wise, beautiful philanthropist that we've spent some time with. He's got an amazing cause, Friends of the Children. It's a national organization of which we also brought a chapter to Detroit. And that was one of the things he said. He wanted to share wisdom with listeners that said, value your friendships. He's got friends that are maybe not as successful, not as involved with many other things, but those same friends have been his friends. And don't they have one night a week?
Absolutely.
Anyone that can get together gets there, and it's that intentional moment for him. And That was a brilliant little moment with him.
And another great one is Arthur Brooks. He, wrote this book, From Strength to Strength. It's the latter years of your life. What have you learned? How can, be successful and happy and fulfilled? And friendship is nutritious and as important as exercise and sunlight and everything else. So this investment in deepening our friendships, you talk about systems in place and structures and ways to make those friendships enduring and rich and rewarding. I mean, I have the Friday Night Testosterone Club I've been doing for 40 years, which is we go out and go to movies that, like Roadhouse and, Lethal Weapon 17, all of the movies that our wives are not going to see, but that an ongoing ritual of connection, and it's usually involving dinner and then ping pong, but it's really deliberate, the structures that we put in place, to your point, to make that real.
Will, are we going to be able to listen to this conversation that you and Simon and your wife are doing?
I don't think this is going to be recorded, no. But Simon and I it's just become a thing we've been talking. I would imagine there will be something we put out into the world about this at some point.
Is there a nugget right now you want to share about this intentional friendship piece and what you've been thinking about?
I mean, just like the different moves, right? Like one of the things, what you just shared about the Friday Night Testosterone Club, what a beautiful example. During COVID, you remember when COVID first started, we all had those Zooms where we were all just dialing in and connecting with people that we loved with no agenda outside of a desperate need to feel connected to other people. And I was with a group of friends. There's a restaurant in Seattle called Canlis Restaurant, which I think is one of the great restaurants in America. And Brian Canlis, third generation owner, he and his brother Mark run the restaurant now. Brian was my roommate in college, and there's this thing called the Canlis board. That's an independent restaurant. They don't need a board of directors, but we have a board, and it's me and a guy named Randy Garudi, the CEO of Shake Shack, and this guy Tom Clifton. It's like a group of us. We're all very close, and it doesn't happen anymore, which is a part of the point I'm about to make. But for a long time, we would have a Canlis board meeting every year, and we'd spend 3 hours talking about the restaurant, and then 3 days just pouring into one another. Anyway, on this first Zoom, Matt Canlis is the oldest of the Canlis brothers, and he's a pastor in Washington State. He shared a prayer that a woman in his church had given. I pray the things we're being forced to do today are things we choose to do tomorrow. Because there were a lot of things that we were forced to do during COVID that we probably should continue choosing to do, and yet we're just a couple of years out, and so many people have already let so many of those things go. We were better at connecting with our friends during COVID than we are outside of COVID. And this idea, there's that whole book, Bowling Alone, right? Like how our world is coming apart because we don't have these reasons to actually disconnect through clubs, right? We can lament the fact that there's a decline in bowling leagues, or the Elks thing is not a thing anymore, or we can just create our own and do a testosterone club on Fridays and go see dumb movies and play ping pong.
But I love that this conversation. See, one of the things that you talk about, that we talk about, that is, again, empirically true, the aggregation of marginal gains is not just about process improvement for improvement of a business or a cycling team. It's about the improvement of our personal lives, the marginal improvement of the aggregation of marginal gains for our lives. How can I up my friendships, plural? How can I deepen my friendships and or my relationship with my intimates?
For sure.
And
We challenged each other in January, Harry, to do something different and unique. I texted somebody new every day. Somebody I thought, who do I miss connecting with? Your example of COVID. Somebody I used to at least connect to because we were homebound. And we did all of January. Now I'm sitting here thinking, well, why didn't I keep doing that? It felt really good. And it made people feel really good. I'm going to get back to that.
Thank you for that.
I'm going to take that away from today.
I want to share 3 things with that as a starter. Okay. I've become somewhat addicted to the voice note for that, just for that.
Love that.
Because a text, the written word can only go so far. The sound of someone who you love's voice carries with it so much gravity. And so yesterday, I just left 2 random people voice notes. Someone who I haven't seen in 2 years. I said, hey, I'm walking down the street. I'm thinking about you. And so I'm just leaving this to tell you that I was just thinking about you. Hope you're
I
well.
just got
Dude,
goosebumps.
dude.
So,
Olin.
Or
the
2 and
next
3.
thing, is the power of a calendar invite. If this podcast was not in my calendar, I would not have remembered to log on to the podcast. Now I'm going to tell a story that will finish point number 2. So a friend, and this is all around friendship, and it's all around being as creative and innovative and intentional in pursuit of friendships, right? Not reserving our best efforts for our work and our marriages and our children. One of my very good friends, I've known him since freshman year of college. He lost his dad 2 years ago. Okay, so when it comes to the holidays, and I have to think about what I'm going to get for my wife as a gift. I mean, I sit down and I'm like, all right, I'm going to spend the next hour thinking about this. And I'm online, I'm Googling stuff, I'm thinking, I'm remembering. And I spent an hour trying to figure out what is the right approach to take in making my wife feel loved for Christmas. And so I did the same thing with him. I said, what is the right way to support a friend when they've lost a parent? And it's the first time I've experienced, I lost my mom a long time ago, but I haven't had a close friend lose one of their parents. And I was like, gosh, I'm sure a ton of people are calling him right now. Anyway, this is what I ended up doing. I sent him a text when I heard. It was a not crazy long text, but it was, hey, buddy, I just heard and I'm so sorry. I said, here's the deal. Starting tomorrow morning, I'm going to call you every single day at 9:30 in the morning for the foreseeable future. To set expectations, I don't expect you to answer. But I want you to know that if there ever is a morning when you want or need to talk to someone, you will always see my name ringing through to your phone at 9:30. And I put it in my calendar. I set up a recurring invite in my Outlook every day for 30 minutes at 9:30 with no end date. And I called him at 9:30 every single day for 8 months. He didn't answer for the first 7 to 10 days. And then going forward from that moment, he probably answered 98% of the time. And here's the thing. When you go through loss, it can be hard to feel connected with the people in your life because you feel like you owe them a certain amount of weight and gravity in the conversation when you ultimately have it. When you're talking to someone for 5, 6, 7 minutes a day, every single day, you can be emotional if you need to be emotional, but you don't need to be emotional because you feel like you owe it to a friend who is not the one suffering the loss. And so we would get on the phone and talk about, I don't know, like Twinkies for 5 minutes or this. And it just, I've talked to so many people who have suffered loss and feel like they are totally alone because people don't know how to reach out to them. Is that the perfect way to walk down that road with someone? I don't know. Is it a way to do it? And did he feel supported by it? And is it proof that with just a bit of preparation and thoughtfulness and taking how you support a friend through a moment of loss as seriously as you do every other element of your career? Yeah.
That was 2 points, really. I mean, the calendar invite is but how you help somebody with grief specifically to be there consistently for them the way they want. That was 2 really
Yeah, no,
important
the
points. I'll call that 2
calendar
A
invite
and
was
B.
calendar was point 2.
Okay.
The other one was point 3.
Okay. So it was.
Yeah. Well,
But you heard how quiet we were for a change. That was really important.
stealing it. I mean, I feel like cup runneth over, man. And I don't know how we're going to end this so that what
All the good juicy
stays.
stuff.
I mean,
There's so much good juicy stuff.
Just-
Is there anything else like legacy wise? How do you want to leave the world as a better place? You talk about your father. That's an honor that you can honor his legacy. And now we want to talk about yours. What's your legacy that you leave behind?
I mean, I don't know. I hope I have not yet figured out the ultimate legacy that I end up leaving. I'm in a very interesting season right now where, I mean, anyone who read the book knows that I did what I did at the restaurant because I was laser focused for the first 20 years of my career with very clear objectives and exactly what I wanted to accomplish. And then I did, and then I sold the restaurant, and then I kind of almost went back and started opening restaurants again. Then COVID hit, and that was a blessing because it gave me the grace to decide what I wanted to do next, as opposed to running back and doing the thing that I'd always done. And then I wrote the book, and I'm in a season of doing various things that bring me joy that I think have the ability to be impactful without having this big end goal in mind, outside of finding different avenues to talk about what I believe in hopes that other people might believe in it a little more themselves. And that is that I don't care what you do for a living, we can all make the choice to be in the hospitality industry. And gosh, it'll make your businesses more profitable. It'll help you achieve whatever goal, but it'll also just feel really freaking good and make the world a better place. And
I like that.
if at the end of the day, if I were to pick a legacy now, if I could just get as many people as humanly possible to embrace that style of thinking, that would be pretty fulfilling. But I'm in like a, what do they call them? Walkabout. Like I'm kind of just testing different things to feel what can bring me the most joy and be the most impactful at the same time. And I'm kind of enjoying the ride and seeing where it takes me.
It's good. Yeah, evolving into the friendship message, I think, was really interesting for us today. I didn't expect it. Got a lot out of it. Feel real warm and cozy. Is it nice and cozy or warm and cozy?
It was nice and cozy when I started it, and then I think I inadvertently changed it to
okay.
warm and cozy.
Maybe it's just the way I felt. So thank you for that.
So this mission that you're on, I'm going to take from that you use the expression, the season that you're in now, in this walkabout phase of your life. And everybody goes through these seasons of their life. And it's very helpful for me to think about that. And whatever season that we are in together, and for our listeners, that no matter what will bring you the most joy, no matter what season you're in, what will make the most impact for the most people and do the most good. Man, do I love that.
If our lives are a story, every season is a chapter. And that means you can't rush through any one of them. Otherwise, it's going to be a pretty shitty book, right? Like, you need to sit in each season and fully let it flush itself out.
True.
Otherwise, you're going to have a bunch of bad chapters. You
If
can't
it's a
have a
good
great
book, you don't
book.
want it. Yeah,
You don't want it to have a great
end.
book with a bunch of bad chapters, right?
Yeah.
Every season matters, even if it doesn't feel like a great season in the moment.
That's beautiful. Oh, man. I hope people who listen to this get really special, Will. Really
It was
special.
for me as well, to be
Good.
clear.
I'm glad.
No, it was more for me.
He loves to do that.
We used to do this. No, I love you more. I have a dear friend. He goes, I love you, brother. And I go, no, not even close. We have decided not even close.
Not even close.
Well, I look forward to watching your journey and this chapter
Yeah,
that doesn't end for a
man.
while. Obviously, your next chapter and how much goodness you can spread. I look forward to watching.
So, and if I ever get to meet you, I want to give you the biggest hug. Just thank you, my brother.
I'm a hugger as well.
Yeah,
so
we are too.
here's to being nice and cozy.
Here's to being nice and cozy.
Guys, this was a blast. I appreciate all of you, and
Me
I
too.
hope to get 3 solid hugs from each one of you at some point in the
Absolutely.
next 20
Awesome.
years. At some point it'll happen. I look forward to it.
Love it.
Excellent. Have a great day. Go forth
guys.
and do great
Thank
stuff.
you. And
You guys take care.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.